everybody. Rise up. It's a Saturday morning edition of The Sweat. It's damn good to have you here. I'm Emerson Latzia, sitting alongside Steve Buchanan and Julian Edlow. Julian, is your computer working?
It's got 8% battery left. Should be a good show.
My God. You are better than this. That's an amateur move.
It's all up here, guys.
Which absolutely frightens us. You know what doesn't frighten us? What's coming up in this show. Okay, so we have the Celtics, Jules, taking game one of the NBA Finals on Thursday. We'll see where your mind is at ahead of game two tomorrow night, who you are giving the edge to. Hey, Oilers, Panthers, big one for Jeff Ulrich tonight. The pride of Edmonton and the game one of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. And they're off. Little Belmont preview with Mike Somich, the best in the business at VSiN, helping you pick a winner today. We'll pick our winners. We'll pick a little trifecta at the end of the show, have a little bit of fun. Mike's also going to give you his recommendation for the trifecta today.
Listen
and remember,
him,
it's not
us.
What's that?
Listen to him for that.
Yeah, for sure, which is why
Sierra
we're saving.
Leone.
What?
Sierra Leone.
Okay.
That's who's going to win the race.
Interesting. It's also not at Belmont this year. Everyone keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So that is very, very important. Saratoga Springs,
Saratoga.
quarter mile shorter than the Belmont track.
Curious to see what producer Drew's sheets say.
Yes, that's right. Producer
Needs
Drew,
the sheets.
big horse guy. So he once again refused an appearance on this show, his own show.
We should have a Keno segment.
Drew's on Sierra Leone.
yeah.
How to pick good numbers.
Drew's on Sierra Leone. I'm on the same horse.
Okay, all right, good
Oh, so
stuff.
that's where you got it from. You didn't
Segment's
like.
done. No, I had not talked to Drew once about it.
All right, well, this first segment of the
Don't
show
even
is
run the
not
race.
done because it's time to work up a sweat, ladies and gentlemen. Who does producer Drew have going first in the rundown? Jules, that is you. What direction do you want to take us? Is it the NBA Finals?
I was debating whether or not to start NBA Finals because obviously, we only have two teams to talk about.
Yeah.
We got a full segment on it. But I am going to start NBA Finals because I think we saw a lot in game one.
Yeah.
The story was Porzingis coming in off the bench, scoring the 11 first quarter points, well over that 3.5 first quarter point prop, which is back out there. That was the story. So I think that kind of stole the show, and that's what everybody's talking about. What people aren't talking about is something that I found far more surprising than Porzingis actually being healthy and having a good game. The fact that Kyrie Irving is going backwards to the guy that he used to be. I didn't see this coming. We've been giving Kyrie props for this entire season and playoff run with how he's been handling things, how he's been playing. He seemed very comfortable in his own skin as the number 2 guy to Luka, playing his role within the team, not being a distraction. And then he comes back to Boston and missed all 5 of his threes. He had, 12 points?
Yeah, he was 6
assist.
for 19. 6 of 19 from the field, 12 points. Turned it over 3 times, total just 2 assists, and was minus 19 in 37 minutes.
So you could have a bad game, but he's dribbling the ball off his foot. He's going back and forth with fans. He fell back into it. He said this was not going to be a distraction, and I can guarantee you that it was a distraction. And it affected his play. So post-game in his comments, it was not just that he said that he expected the building to be louder. He tried to take a shot at the fans. Now the fans are going to come at him harder in game 2. It was also like the way he was speaking. Like, he's been speaking very we-oriented this whole playoff run, and he kind of fell back into the ways that he used to talk about having his guys ready, and like it just seemed to me from listening to him, and as somebody that covered him as a reporter during one of his years in Boston, it seemed to me like the way he was talking, he's moving backwards to a place that Dallas does not want him to be.
You know what it sounds like?
What?
You know when you say your buddy says that he's moved on from his ex-girlfriend?
Yeah.
Kind
and
of.
you're like, well, she's going to be at the party tonight. Oh, dude, it'll be fine. And then he sees her and
he becomes a mental mess.
crumbles.
You gotta
mental puddle.
Puts down 17 beers, starts crying in the bathroom. That type
He's
of
in the
situation.
fetal
Literally
position. He's
what
got a
it
fire
sounds like,
burning
though.
in the trash can.
That's literally what it sounds like, though. It's like spot on. Like, as he was describing this, I'm like, this is that dude who says he's ready to move on and sees her again and crumbles.
It is that type of situation. Yeah.
Jules, how bold of a prediction is it, though, to say maybe Kyrie Irving will swing at least one game Dallas's way in this series?
He should. They're talented enough where, we'll talk about this more in the NBA segment,
Yeah.
but I think Game 2 is Dallas's best spot in this series. They just got mopped. They looked awful. They need to make serious adjustments, and the Celtics are going to kind of just keep their game plan. So is that counter from Dallas going to hit hard? That counter should be a lot of Kyrie and Luka. So Dallas, this should still be a series. I'm not convinced just because of that domination that the Mavericks aren't going to have a shot in this series.
All right, well, the NBA segment in this show is coming up after our first break, so stick around. Jules has a lot of bets to get to for Game 2. What were you?
And I was going to say kudos to Julian, because when he was talking about MVP, there was a lot of buzz about Kyrie potentially, and he was saying
He was plus 2,200.
Yeah,
and he was saying if the Mavericks are going to win, it's going to be from Luka, not from Kyrie.
Yeah,
so now, if you're holding a Kyrie MVP ticket, that's not what you wanted to say.
And it's not to say that Kyrie can't play well and should play well, but Dallas just can't beat the Celtics 4 times if Luka Doncic isn't the best player on the floor.
All right, Bukes, time for you to warm it up, and I'm seeing an interesting tweet on the touch screen right now.
So I have been very hesitant on this show to start giving out official award bets.
That's true.
It's still kind of early. Lots can change, especially when it comes to pitching.
And all the injuries.
All the injuries. The Astros just found out yesterday that 2 guys are going to be getting Tommy John.
That's right.
So, the injuries just continue to mount. But you know what? I was feeling pretty good the other day. I was watching Jack Flaherty take the mound and dominating. And I said, you know what? I've seen enough. I'm officially firing on Jack Flaherty to win the American League Cy Young at 30-1, by the way. Great number. So, went ahead, made the bet. That tweet went out at 9:16 p.m. At 9:33, so we're talking about little 20 minutes later, this tweet comes out. Jack Flaherty was pulled after just 60 pitches, and he was pitching really well. Haven't seen anything on it yet. Within 20 minutes of me making my first Cy Young bet, that player gets pulled due to injury, and they're saying not sure if he's going to make his next start because he's dealing with back tightness, which is something that Jack Flaherty has dealt with in prior years before. So he thinks he might be able to make his next start on Tuesday. They're giving him some extra rest. But holy crap, look at the theme of this year when it comes to pitchers. This is why I was so hesitant, because the injuries have been just so profound across the league. Now you have somebody who I looked at, and the value is immense, because if you look at Jack Flaherty's stats, this dude is being completely disrespected in the Cy Young market right now. 3.22 ERA, an expected ERA of 2.60. So if anything, for as good as Jack Flaherty has been, he's actually been better than what the stats say. His strikeouts per 9 inning at a career high at 11.6. His swing and miss rate, the highest of his career. And then when you look at some of the guys that are in the company, the same odds as, range as he is, Valdez was in there. Carlos Rodon is in there. I mean, Rodon has been fine, but, his expected ERA above 4, whereas normal ERA is at 3, so some regression coming, whereas Jack Flaherty has been better than what we've seen.
Dude.
So for me, 30-1 on Jack Flaherty is just ridiculous value. I really hope that he ends up making this next start, because that was literally the first time where I was found a guy, like the number, like his spot, like everything I've seen. And within 20 minutes, because I started getting a bunch of texts, people oh, Flaherty's hurt. And I thought they were screwing with me. And then I turn on the game, and literally as I turn on the game, we see him in the dugout, and he's trying to stretch out his back. And I was are you,
some of these
not
teams,
appropriate for television?
With all of the injuries we've seen so far, Steve, I'm assuming some of these teams are being a little extra cautious, just if there's just one little chance that
he wanted to come out himself.
Dude, he's now one of 4 pitchers in MLB history to post at least 94 strikeouts and no more than 10 walks through his first 12 starts of a season.
And you're getting this guy at 30-1 right now, in the same company of guys who are in no business being in that same company. So Here's what I would say.
The good news for you is that he's still 30-1.
I was just going to say that. He is still third. No, it's fine. I'm glad your computer's still working.
Yep.
He is still.
What are we at now? 6%?
7. Holds a good charge. It's going strong.
He's still at 30-1. I would say if you like what I just said here, I mean, I would implore you to go and just watch him pitch. Like, let's see what happens after this next start here. Maybe he falls a little bit if he has a good start and makes that start, and he ends up, maybe 25-1 or something. But like, the value you're getting on him right now with the way he's been pitching, I think is absurd. And this is kind of like goes back, and I hate going back to this because obviously it was a win. But the Robbie Ray thing, when I talked about him winning the Cy Young, he was 80-1, and it was like no business being at 80-1.
And there were some other injuries this week too with Juan Soto. Who else? Kyle Tucker. These dudes are in the MVP market. Like, you may just need to stay away from the awards market for a little longer, even though, like you said, hold off for the first few months of the season. You decided to take the jump, be a man, and then all of a sudden they said,
Pretty much. Pretty much.
All right, we got to take a break because Jules needs to charge his computer here, everybody. And hopefully he's got enough juice in it because following this break, one NBA Finals game is down. We've got only 3 more to go because the Celtics are 1,000% sweeping this thing. When we come back, let's see who Jules is giving the edge to ahead of tomorrow night. Back here on The Sweat, I'm Emerson Lotzi sitting alongside Julian Edlow. The Celtics dominating most of Game 1 of the NBA Finals on That was Friday. No, that was Thursday.
There you go.
Thursday night. So they won 107-89 here, people. They hit 9 more threes than the Mavs. They won the assist battle 23-9, Jules.
Yeah.
And after a historic regular season, and with the Celtics being at home, maybe the result shouldn't have been all that surprising. However, you've already mentioned to us, it doesn't mean this series is over. You talked about Kristaps being a big, big surprise. You talked about Kyrie Irving, and clearly fans under his skin right now. But let's go back to KP and elaborate a little more on just how surprised you were with the way he came out. He looked gassed at times. He looked a little gimpy on that ankle, the foot injury, whatever it was. But man, that dude came out.
Neither of those. It's a calf.
The calf. I mean, it's head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Whatever, dude.
Sure.
Okay. So, on what scale of 1 to 10, how surprised were you with what he did? 10 being the most surprising.
I don't. Middle 4 or 5. I was
God.
not that
No,
surprised.
sorry, dude.
I was not surprised. I've been saying on this show for over a month that he's not going to play.
He hasn't played in a month, and he came out and he looked excellent.
I mean, they had that time to give him. I didn't think they were going to play him until game 1 of the finals. They held true to that, and he had a lot of time to get rest for a positive matchup, and that's why I backed him to go over 3.5 first quarter points. Got a little nervous when he didn't start.
Yeah,
but he scored 11 in the quarter.
Because you had what prop do you have him in the first quarter?
First quarter, over 3.5 points.
Okay.
So we'll go back to that for game 2, by the way. Start or bench, don't care. I think rotation-wise, it's essentially Porzingis is going to get 6-7 minutes in the first quarter. Horford's going to get the other 5-6 minutes of the quarter. And I think what they did, I think Porzingis can start. I think they're just kind of using the off-the-bench excuse to get a matchup that they like better. I really like the way the Celtics matched up in game 1. I thought their game plan was fantastic, and they got Horford going up against Gafford to start the game, and Gafford became unplayable, even though he went 3 for 3 from the field. It became unplayable in that game, and they went to Maxi Kleber. But then when Porzingis comes in, it's with Derek Lively, and when Lively came in the second quarter, they went back to Porzingis. Joe Mazzulla brought Porzingis off the bench when he saw Lively go to the scorers table. So I think it's clear Porzingis can start. He's fine. They want to match him up. And he could have played more than 20 minutes if he needed to, but they want to match him up with Derek Lively.
And Lively was the biggest losers of game 1, in my opinion. After he had like a brilliant Western Conference final, he scored just 2 points with 5 boards and 18 minutes of action on Thursday night. And, oh my God, Dallas was minus 15 with him on the court. They're going to be...
I don't have the plus minuses in front of me. Does anybody on Dallas have a good plus minus?
I don't think so, but it just backs up that, hey, listen, stat's a stat, fact's a fact there.
Stat's a stat.
The Celtics game plan, though, because we talked about it before the show, you said, man, I really like the Celtics game plan. What about it exactly did you like?
The way that they matched up, like just who they had, Jaylen Brown on Luka, Holiday starting on Kyrie, switching everything with Luka. And again, how they, match Porzingis up with Lively. Lively's rim protection was huge in the last round. Pull him away from the rim with Porzingis being the thought process there. The Mavericks have, I don't have the stat in front of me, they have like 60-something alley-oop dunks in the playoffs. Those are Luka and Kyrie throwing lobs. The next closest team is in single digits. So that's how they had been doing it, and the Celtics didn't allow that in game 1. So the threes, the kick-out threes from Luka and Kyrie, the Celtics didn't allow those. Dallas missed some, but the Celtics did a good job of not allowing them as well. The Celtics did not at all allow those lobs around the rim to Gafford and Lively, and that was huge for them. So I just liked the way that they did everything. I liked their rotation. I liked how they matched guys up. I liked that they switched everything on Luka and made him kind of play more isolation ball. He got his 30, and they really never had a chance. 1 assist.
Dude.
He had 7 potential assist opportunities. So Dallas went just 1 of 7 from the field on those plays. But even just the 7 opportunities for a guy whose assist prop is always 8.5, 9.5, that means they're not giving the opportunities, and the Mavericks are missing the shots, which is just kind of the best of both worlds if you're the Celtics.
And that Luka assist came in the first 3-4 minutes of the game, and then obviously he didn't have one the rest of the way. Dallas also with more turnovers than assists as a team. So you're definitely thinking the Celtics keep the same kind of script entering game 2, which right now, what is your game 2 bet?
Well,
Just talking game bet here.
Yeah, On the side,
Yeah.
I think that Dallas makes it a game. I don't know if I'm ultimately gonna bet them. They're getting what, 7 right now, I think, on DK.
They were getting 6.5 for game one.
Minus 110 each way. It's come down from 7.5. I know we had a 7.5 minus 115 on DK at one point. Dallas is going to make adjustments. I think this is going to be a much better game. Then the Celtics are going to have to counter those adjustments, and we'll see how they finish that game. I think game 2 has a chance to be the best game of the series. The Mavericks are a good road team. The Celtics, let's just go back. Round 1, Celtics blow out the Heat, drop game 2 at home. Round 2, they blow out the Cavs, drop game 2 at home. Dallas, first 2 rounds, they got blown out by the Clippers on the road, won that series. Next round, they get blown out in OKC game 1. They win that series. So there have been patterns from both sides that would suggest that the Mavericks can take game 2. I'm just not sure we're going to see the Celtics lose their focus the way that they did with Miami and Cleveland now at this level. So I think that Dallas has just as good a shot in game 2 as they will all series. Then the Celtics, who have not lost a road game in these playoffs, go to Dallas, where those games are going to be like a pick'em, and unless something fluky happens in game 2, I'm probably going to be on the Celtics in those games in Dallas.
Okay, so in terms of player props then, do you go back to Luka thinking he's actually going to start dishing them out a little more, going over 8.5 assists?
No, actually. Luka, I might play the under on the assists.
Okay.
Not necessarily because he had 1 in the game. That's fluky. But like I said, the 7 potentials. So he played that whole game and had the opportunity for 7 potential assists. That means if every pass that he made leading to a shot had gone in, he still would have stayed under this number. So if that's going to be a game plan thing with the Celtics, with how they match up, switch everything on Luka, let him kind of isolate, Luka's going to get these switches, get matchups he likes, and then look to be a scorer like he was in game 1. I just don't think he's going to, even if that number 7 goes up to 10, those guys are going to have to knock down 9 out of 10 shots to get him his assists. And the lobs, like I said, Porzingis around the rim, taking the lobs away in game 1 is huge. That takes away a handful of assists from Luka. So I would go under on Luka's assists for a prop. That's probably my second favorite one that I have not bet yet, right behind Porzingis first quarter points again.
Okay.
Which we have up at 3.5. It did get juiced. It moved about 30 cents after what he did in game 1. Don't care if he starts, don't care if he comes off the bench. Pencil him in for the 7 minutes in the first quarter, and I like him to get involved early again.
In terms of series props, how much has your opinion changed in this department following what we witnessed in game 1?
I mean, game 1 was good to see as the Celtics backer. I'm still confident that they win it all as I was going into the series. I'm just giving Dallas their respect that they're going to be in a few games in this series, and we'll see if they can close it out with Kyrie and Luka. But a lot of people are saying this is going to be a sweep after how the Celtics dominated game 1. I don't think we can overreact to game 1. I think this
That's
is
what
still
Mike
going to be...
Bullock Sr. said yesterday. He was joking a little bit, but I also could sense some seriousness in his tone. He thinks it's going to be a sweep.
Thank you for
I'm just helping
gauging the seriousness of his tone. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I think Dallas is going to... We've seen them do this in a couple of rounds. I think Dallas is going to get it together a little bit more. But again, when the Celtics are at their best like that, the way that they were able to shut down Dallas, the way that they were able to just play their game and get all the matchups that they wanted, I don't think anybody's going to beat the Celtics 4 times right now.
Okay, right now, in terms of the MVP market, anyone who had bet KP in that market before game 1 is feeling pretty good right now. You also see Jaylen Brown putting his hat in the ring for MVP in the finals, but I think a lot more of that is an impact of his defense and his offense. Where do you stand in terms of series MVP right now?
There's 2 ways you can look at it for me. No, I don't think it's going to ultimately be Porzingis as the MVP. He's going to be a big piece.
What was Tatum before game 1? He wasn't plus money, right?
No,
right
so Tatum was, you had to lay a decent amount, I think, on Tatum. So there's the 2 ways to look at it are the top 2 guys. You're either taking the discount now on Tatum at plus 120.
He was minus 115.
115, yep. So you're either taking the discount on Tatum, taking your plus money, saying that he's going to be himself the rest of the series, not have a game where he scores 16 points. Or where I would go, I know Jaylen Brown was like 6-1. Now he's
KP
3-1.
was what? Plus 3,500, I
He
think.
was, yeah, he came
think
down with it. You
producer
can't bet
just said.
Porzingis now.
Yeah,
It's
no,
too
you
late.
can't. Even though Howie, behind the roaming camera here in the studio, got on Porzingis a little early. Good for you, Howie.
Brown at 310 you can take. He was like 625, I think, before the series, so it's been cut in half. But the way that he's been playing, he's been the Celtics' toughest player, and he's been shutting. His defense is a much bigger role than Jason Tatum's has been in this series.
All right, big man. Well, we got the quest for the cup, puck dropping
Go
between
Panthers.
the Oilers and Panthers tonight. Oh, you're a hockey guy now. Okay, we're
Yeah.
going to bring in a dynamic NHL.com duo next to help us. Cup hockey in June. It's becoming the norm, and the puck drops on this year's Cup final tonight, boys and girls, marking the 14th time since 1993 when Jurassic Park was #1 at the box office. That the NHL's championship series will begin in the 6th month of the calendar year. Let's see how these two hockey heads expect it all to play out. The dynamic NHL.com duo of Pete Jensen and Anna, the Calzone duo, which we are talking here, lady and gentleman, the Panthers and Oilers, Sunrise, Florida to Edmonton, Alberta. More than 2,500 miles apart. It is glorious. Two contrasting styles here. How pumped are you for this matchup, Anna?
I'm so excited. We saw both conference finals in their respective conferences go to 6 games each. Edmonton had a lot of momentum towards the end of their series against the Dallas Stars. Florida's been a dominant team throughout the postseason. I'm just excited to see these two squads play each other.
Yeah, you and me both. So in the final, for the first time in his 9 NHL seasons, Pete, Connor McDavid and the Oilers, they're underdogs and counting here on the face of the league to lead them to their first title since 1990. This feels great to me, in my opinion. Great for the league, Pete, despite the not-so-big media markets. What do you think?
Oh, it's tremendous. It's great theater. It's the legacy type stuff for McDavid and his career, best player in the NHL. I don't think anyone would contest that. Maybe some people believe it's Crosby or it's been Crosby for the past decade, but this is McDavid's chance to shine and show that he can supersede what's going on the other end, because Florida has a dynamic, dominant puck possession style with maybe a better goalie in Bobrovsky compared to Stuart Skinner, but he can override all those things together with, of course, Leon Draisaitl, who has joined him in the top 5 in the NHL for 5+ years now in scoring and points. And I mean, these guys are a real dynamic duo, with all due respect to me and Anna.
McDavid, the #1 overall pick in the 2015 NHL draft, which took place in Sunrise, Florida. Then there's the question here, guys, of how much Stanley Cup final experience really matters, to which Oilers head coach Chris Knobloch said this.
Experience is good. I don't know how much experience is, beneficial. You can ask the Buffalo Bills how important Super Bowl experience is.
Oh, man. Anna, you're a huge Bills fan. Why are your boys catching strays like this?
I wasn't from Edmonton? What? Where is this coming from? I was just I was all fully Canada's team, let's go. And then the Bills are Canada's football team. I was why are we catching strays from up north? My goodness. Oh, I thought I was done with the Bill slander until the fall, but never be too safe. You always have to sleep with one eye open in Buffalo.
No. So how do you feel about the actual question with the experience though? Do you think it matters? And how much do you think we will see the difference in Stanley Cup experience kind of play out in game 1 tonight?
I do think it actually does matter, specifically because of how recent it was. The Florida Panthers made the Stanley Cup final last season, and they're back in the Stanley Cup final again this season. It's not a completely different team. They still have their core pieces that have a little sour taste in their mouth from the way things ended last year. I know they have something to prove. So I do think it makes quite a big difference. And I think early on in this series, you're going to see that with Florida playing the style of hockey that they play. I think Edmonton's going to take a couple of, at least one game to feel out the Florida Panthers, and then we'll see some adjustments in maybe game 2. But I actually really like Florida in this first game.
Okay, so Pete, then which side do you like tonight? And really, does being on this stage in back-to-back seasons give Florida that much bigger of an advantage this evening?
I think it gives them advantage over the course of the series, but anything can happen in game 1. We saw the Panthers lose to the Bruins pretty convincingly in game 1 in the second round. So that series, even though it evened out over time and went back into Florida's favor, it was hard for Florida to close out Boston. They shut down the Rangers. Even that series has been, was a bunch of 1-goal games. So I just think that anything can happen in game 1. Florida's not invincible, even though I like them to win the series, and their style is more conducive to grinding out the Oilers and shutting down or containing McDavid and Draisaitl over time. Game 1, if Edmonton is the underdog, I mean, there is a real play on them. Florida has lost some home games this postseason.
So, Pete, who do you think is going to be that number one star at the end of game one tonight? Like, is there going to be anybody outside the big names, outside the heavy hitters, or is Connor simply going to be that guy?
I have been talking up Sam Bennett all week. I think he has a tremendous impact on this team overall. You look back to last postseason and that first round series upset against the Boston Bruins. It all kind of turned. Remember when Bergeron wasn't healthy and Bennett came back from injury? He can really turn a series on a dime, I think, playing with Matthew Tkachuk. And that's really the thing, right? The physicality of the Florida guys, especially Tkachuk and Bennett. Those guys used to play against McDavid when they were on the Calgary Flames. That was one of the best rivalries in the league. They know him inside and out, and they're going to try to do everything they can to shut him down. And Sam Bennett, 6 goals in 12 games, including goals in 3 straight playoff games. So he's been hot.
All right, so who can rise up? Who will rise up and be that dude tonight, Anna?
I'm still with Pete in terms of Florida here. I do think Florida has an advantage in game one of this series just because the style of play that they have against Edmonton. I think Florida's going to come out swinging. For me, it's Carter Verhaeghe. So the Panthers won both of their regular season games against the Edmonton Oilers, and Verhaeghe performed very, very well against this team. He had 5 points, 3 goals across those 2 contests. And so we know he's been a playoff performer in the past. If I think Florida has the edge in game one, then maybe Verhaeghe's the guy who maybe finds the back of the net in this one.
Pete, what about the Conn Smythe Trophy field here for playoff MVP in this matchup? I feel that the field offers a far greater number of potential winners in this series. Who are you looking at to bring it home right now?
I think McDavid wins it if Edmonton wins it. We talked about it on our podcast, and I agree with that sentiment. If Florida wins it, I don't think it's going to be Bobrovsky. He's only been slightly better than Stuart Skinner so far in the playoffs, unless he has a ridiculous series to stand on his head. But again, Florida usually dominates or controls the possession like they did against the Rangers. I think that it could be Matthew Tkachuk if he has a series similar to what he did last postseason in the 3rd round against Carolina, where I think he scored a bunch of goals and he had 2 of the overtime goals. So that could be flared for the dramatic and kind of a larger than life persona, and his father playing in the NHL, that could play into his favor. Right now, the favorite is probably Barkov, though, because of his two-way style. But I'm picking, if I were to foresee things, I would say Matthew Tkachuk has a great chance.
All right, Anna, look into your crystal ball right now. Who do you see winning this thing?
So what I love about hockey is the MVP trophy, the Conn Smythe doesn't necessarily go to the big name guy on these teams. You can see any guy win this trophy. So that's what makes the NHL kind of different from other sports where sometimes you can figure out which guy is going to walk away with that award. If the Edmonton Oilers win, obviously Connor McDavid is the favorite. I do want to give some appreciation right now to Evan Bouchard and the season that he's having. He is playing ridiculous hockey specifically compared to his position. He's right up there among league leaders in terms of points, ranking 3rd, and he's a defenseman. He's at a great postseason, so I want to sprinkle some value on him there as well. Zach Hyman still leads the NHL in postseason goals. You can't really ignore him. If either of these 2 guys have a breakout Stanley Cup final, I get that it's Connor McDavid's trophy to lose, but Evan Bouchard specifically, is a guy I'm taking a look at as this series plays out. And on the Florida end, I think Sasha Barkov, I agree with Pete, is the go-to answer right now. Matthew Tkachuk could bring it home. If Carter Verhaeghe just scores an insane amount of goals, he's leading the Florida Panthers in postseason goals right now, maybe that's another player I'd take a look at. If I had to choose one right now because of his 2-way game and how important it's going to be to shut down Connor McDavid in this series, I think I would go Sasha Barkov for the Florida Panthers.
And just looking at the series as a whole here, Anna, the Panthers are the favorites, rightfully so, given their play in the first 3 rounds here, but you can't underestimate the Oilers, who have embraced this underdog mentality. They want to remind people to keep doubting them, to keep doubting goaltender Stuart Skinner here. So let's hear which side, in the end, you are taking to lift Lord Stanley. I believe you may have hinted at it being Florida.
Yeah, you know what?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
as much as a Canadian, I would love to say Edmonton. You know, it's a win-win for me, right? Like, so I'm gonna say Florida in 7. That's who I have winning the series. I just think the Florida Panthers are so well equipped, and I think this is their year. They've been so dominant. They play such a physical style of hockey. They have a lot of depth, not only in their forward group, but also down their blue line. I think Sergei Bobrovsky edges out Stuart Skinner, but all credit to Stuart Skinner with the way he played in the Western Conference Final. Like, great on him. I think he's been very underrated in terms of appreciation for how he played in that series. But Florida's the team that just looks locked and loaded, ready to go. But if Edmonton wins, I'll still be happy. So win-win for me.
Pete, you got 20 seconds here, homie. Make your pick.
I got Florida in 6. I think that, McDavid, that storyline is going to be a great spectacle for hockey fans, but hockey's a team sport. We've seen it so many times. It's hard for superstars to dictate whatever they want, like the NBA, for example. So I'll side with Florida in 6.
All right, you two are fantastic. Happy snacking, Anna. We're rooting for all the overtime games in this series. Coming up next, we got a fantastic final weekend on tap at the French Open. VSiN's Zachary Cohen will join the program to help us navigate all the bets available on the DK Sportsbook. Welcome back to The Sweat, everybody, where it is time now to take our talents to the city of croissants, Paris, home of Emily, to grab what we hope are some money-making French Open bets from a good friend of the program here, our VSiN teammate, Zach Cohen. Top of the morning, friend. How have the past few weeks been for you following all this coverage across the pond?
It's been pretty fun. Tough on the sleep schedule. I'm on the West Coast, so these matches are starting at like 2 a.m., but it's been a good tournament so far. A lot of exciting matches. I've had a little bit of success with it, so it's been a good time.
Well, a little bit of success is enough success for us, which is why we have you here. And we got to talk the women's final here, starting in about 10 minutes or so from now. So Iga Swiatek will be a heavy favorite to win her third straight and fourth overall French Open title. Top-ranked women's singles player in the world here, facing the 12 seed in Italian, Jasmine Paolini, who has experienced what appears to be, and you tell me, her first breakthrough at a Grand Slam tournament over the last 2 weeks. What chance are you giving the underdog here, man?
Yeah, it is her first breakthrough. I'm not giving her much of a chance, unfortunately. I gave out Iga Swiatek at -110 to win this tournament before it started over at vsin.com. So I have advised people not to really play this unless you want to do, a really tiny hedge on Paolini. But I don't really think that there's much of a chance that she wins this match. And, I had to do write-ups for these matches, and it's just really difficult. But I've given away the play of Swiatek to win the first set and to have more aces than Paolini. That's a +140 if you want to throw just the tiniest bit of something on this match, just because it is a standalone final. But it's not often that you have a standalone final with the odds like these.
Yeah, for sure. Zach, let's just say, though, Paolini, if she is able to take this thing and shock the world, where would it rank among biggest ever Grand Slam final upsets?
I think it would be the biggest Grand Slam final upset. Honestly, sports odds history has this as the most lopsided odds in final history in their database. So it just historically is there from an odds perspective. And it's just Iga on clay in Paris. This is very similar to like Rafa on clay in Paris. So this would be a monumental upset for a player that just joined the top 10, a 28-year-old's late bloomer. It'd be shocking.
All right, so Coco Gauff losing in the semifinal, which is why we're not talking about her in the final. But her rise to the top, Zach, like if even a casual tennis fan knows this, it's been impressive. In American tennis, like we're so desperate for the next big thing post Serena here, who oddly enough Coco starred as in a commercial years ago. How soon before she could potentially become the most dominant player in the women's game?
Yeah, I kind of think she's kind of already there. Like, I don't know if she'll ever dominate, only because Iga's on a really similar timeline to her. She's 23 years old. There's all the other top players in the world are also very young. But I do think that Coco's going to have her chances. I think that, the U.S. Open every year is going to present opportunities for her. She has such tremendous fan support there. Her game translates pretty well to hard courts. I just think that on clay, like her beating Iga is just a really tough task. But she's a player that can beat anybody else in the world besides Iga. So it's a really interesting situation where she's the number 2 in the world. The amount of ranking points she has actually would have had her as number 1 in the world in each of the last 3 seasons, I believe. So she's really playing like a number 1. She's just behind a player that just happens to be generational.
So then right now at this time, where would Coco be on your Wimbledon radar?
For Wimbledon, it's a little bit tougher because those are much faster courts. The ball bounces really low. Coco's a player that relies on her speed to get to shots and, plays a really defensive style. So I think it's a tough tournament for her to win. Having said that, like she kind of goes deep at every tournament. So I would say she'll probably end up in the semifinals still, but I wouldn't want to bet Coco to win Wimbledon. But I do think that, kind of the best case scenario would be she kind of gets bounced a little earlier than expected at Wimbledon. That gets you better odds on her to win the U.S. Open.
Yeah, which she would be defending her title, right? The U.S. Open.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome.
Title.
Let's go to the men's side here because it feels like it's been a kind of an emotional tournament on the men's side. It feels like a new era is being born here. Djokovic had to withdraw from the French. Federer has retired. He retired years ago. Who takes the crown from these guys next?
I think it's a combination of Sinner and Alcaraz. Those are just two guys that are just tremendous. They already have a nice little rivalry going. We got to see them play here. It's going to be really fun to just watch them play these next couple of years. I think that Alcaraz will have more success on the clay. He just has that style where he's able to get a little bit grittier. He has, some tremendous defense himself, like a Coco Gauff. But I think that Sinner will win the faster tournaments. I think he's going to have a real shot at winning Wimbledon on hard courts. His powers just really tough to deal with. So I think it's going to be a combination of those two kind of trading off with one another. I think that they're very similar to the Nadal, Djokovic, Federer types.
Such a niche sport here that we're talking, Zach. So do you believe it's better for the game when there's more parity, or when we see the 1, 2, 3 big dogs on the men's and women's side just, colliding nonstop, and we wait till they meet in the quarterfinals, semifinals, or final of these majors and other tournaments?
I think the best case scenario is you have a few stars that are, carrying the sport from a star power perspective, winning tournaments mostly. People know who they are, but then you have a little bit, maybe one of the Grand Slams each year is a little more open. And I kind of think that's going to be the case with Wimbledon moving forward.
What's the outlook of Rafael Nadal here? Because his recent form, he had the first round exit at the French Open here. And I know despite his recent form, his legacy still feels like it's the gold standard for tennis, is it not?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's really interesting because they were planning on that being his last French Open ever. There was supposed to be a ceremony after his loss to Alexander Zverev. And I think he told them to push it off because I think he liked the way that he performed in that match. I think he liked the way he's been playing in practice in the weeks leading up to the tournament. So I kind of don't think we've seen the last of Nadal. I think that Nadal will make his presence felt at the Olympics, which will be played at Roland Garros. And then I also think that, I think next year he's planning to play. I think that his body has responded better to this injury comeback than he expected.
So if you had to guess right now, how much does he have left in the tank? How soon until you believe he hangs him up?
I think he'll play one more season after this because I think he wanted this to be his retirement year. The injury kind of made it really tough on him. I think he's getting healthier. So I kind of think he's going to play another year where he is presumably healthy heading into that season.
Okay. I mean, as for the men's final, we're going to get your pick on who you're backing for the men's final on tomorrow's episode of The Sweat, because the final arrives here in a little more than 24 hours from right now on this Saturday morning, but also tomorrow. And I know you're a big basketball guy, okay? Game 2 of the NBA Finals. What was your biggest takeaway, though, from Game 1 and the Celtics manhandling, for the most part, the Mavs?
I mean, man, that was just the absolute worst math battle that there could have been for the Celtics and Mavericks. I think that we knew going into the series that Boston was going to live and die by the 3-ball, as they had all season, but they were not missing them in the first quarter. They really pounced on the Mavericks. I'm interested in seeing if that continues moving forward. Obviously, Boston has a bunch of guys that could really shoot it. With Porzingis back, they're always playing a center that could space the floor. So I'm interested in seeing if the Mavericks can find a way to cover the three-point line. I'm also looking to see if Kyrie Irving bounces back and plays a little bit better moving forward. I think that if he were to do a little bit better offensively, do his part, Dallas's offense will be unlocked in a lot of different ways. So I think that I still lean with the Mavericks with plus the 7. I just kind of think that these are going to be low-scoring games moving forward, but obviously that first game didn't suggest that.
I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, Porzingis proving why he's nicknamed the unicorn, for crying out loud. Did he even exceed your expectations with that Game 1 performance, playing for the first time in a month?
Yeah, he really did. I mean, I just did not expect it to happen that fast, and just to see him play, one of the best games of his career, honestly. I know it was only 20 or so minutes, but he was hitting every shot there was to be made. His rim protection was incredible, brought Boston's 2-point defense back to a place where it was elite. I was a little surprised to see him playing that well coming that fast off an injury.
How surprising is it the fact that Kyrie Irving, since he left the Celtics, is 0-11 against these guys, including, 6 straight in Boston?
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking. I don't know if that's something that you put actual weight into or if it's just a complete fluke. Like, I know you were saying after the game that the crowd did not sound as loud as he thought it was going to be, but clearly they got to him a little bit. I'm just interested in seeing if he can block out that noise and make some shots. I thought he had some good looks in Game 1, and he's going to need to make them if they're going to, get back in the series.
Yeah, absolutely, because, Jason Tatum, who hasn't been able to go toe-to-toe with the opposing team's biggest star in a lot of these postseasons, it was kind of a down game for him a little bit. Luka's going to get his, but if Luka's the only one, there's no way in hell the Mavs are going to be able to quite possibly even pull out a game here.
Yeah, and I got to say, Jason Tatum deserves a lot of credit because he didn't play well, but at the same time, he wasn't forcing the issue. I think a lot of people were concerned with Boston about Tatum taking bad shots, in the middle part of the shot clock, but I think that he played a really patient game. He just kind of made the right reads, made the right passes, and that kind of allowed Boston to stay in the flow of their offense. But yeah, it was a tough one. To lose a game where Tatum does not play well is not what you want if you're the Mavericks.
Just very quick, so your Game 2 bet right now, you're taking Mavs plus 7.
Yeah, Mavs +7, and I also like Maxi Kleber to score over 2.5 points. I went to it in game one. I think that we saw in game one that Dallas is going to need to play him a lot in this series because he is their best perimeter defensive big, and he's also their best floor spacing big. So if they want to come back, even close to matching the Celtics in terms of 3-point production, I think Kleber is going to need to play, and he's going to need to shoot the ball, which he has been a little reluctant to do since injuring his shoulder.
Zach Cohen, man, appreciate all the help this morning, talking some French Open, talking some NBA Finals. We got to take a break. When we come back, we're stepping into the bettors box here, people, to kick off the second hour of the Sweat. The Dodgers and Yankees, two Goliaths clashing on the diamond. everybody. Welcome back to the Sweat. Great to have you here. Where
You ruined the artsy camera shot.
I know Howie's trying to be creative, and we are just going to now talk baseball. Okay?
He had that like written down, like artsy camera shot, and like he like wrote down the instructions on what he was going to
Yeah,
do.
he's trying to build up his behind the camera portfolio right now. Anywho, Stephen Buchanan has returned, which means we are going to dive into some baseball here as we kick off the second hour of the Sweat. Steve, if you didn't know any better, you would have thought the World Series started last night at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
With the Dodgers in town, the crowd was insane.
They were electric.
Bordering on unhinged, and I mean that in a complimentary way. Celebrities were packing the posh seats behind home plate. More television networks broadcast the game in the U.S. and Japan than I really care to count here. So it's only June 7th, but Dodgers versus Yankees in New York for the first time since 2016. It is a very big deal.
Yeah.
How big of a deal is it in your eyes?
I mean, look, if you look at how the odds are set right now, like this is the projected World Series matchup right now. Like if you go on DraftKings Sportsbook, you go to the World Series straight forecast. The odds-on favorite is Dodgers to beat the Yankees. That's at 11-1. Yankees beat the Dodgers is the second best odds there at 15-1. So this is kind of the projected World Series matchup right now. Will that end up coming to fruition? I think there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of good teams right now. Like the Phillies are a team that's been making a lot of noise. They're really starting to pull away in the NL East, which is surprising. Like we're in early June and there's 6 games up on the
Nobody saw that
right
entering
now.
here.
No, I did not. I mean, I definitely am somebody who did not expect to see that there, but it would be a very entertaining matchup. Like put it this way, for a sport that needs as much exposure as it can get, that type of matchup would just bring ridiculous numbers, national numbers. In hindsight to what we had last year with the Rangers and Diamondbacks. Fun matchup if you're a baseball fan. Not exactly what MLB wants in terms of marketing. This would be the matchup.
Yeah, I think it would be a ... home run in terms of ratings if these two teams clashed on the final stage.
Without a
for
doubt.
sure. By the way, both those teams trading zeros for 10 innings until the Dodgers picking up the extra inning victory there.
And just real quick, too, I thought that was a huge start for Yamamoto because that's someone I really like in the Rookie of the Year conversation. There's a lot of talk about Skeens and all that.
Skeens
but
is gonna take him down.
Yamamoto now 3-1 to win Rookie of the Year. Really kind of solidified his spot in that in the top couple guys there. But I thought that was a huge start from him after a couple of bumps in the road in the month of May. That was a huge, really strong start against the Yankees to really help his case.
Shohei Ohtani going 0 for 5, though, last night.
Yeah.
And I did not know this. Obviously, since he spent his first 6 seasons in the league, in the American League, there's a decent sample size to see how he performs in the Bronx. This was before last night, before he went 0 for 5. In the 13 games prior to Friday evening at Yankee Stadium, he's hitting just 130. 245 on base percentage and a 413 slugging percentage. He does have 4 home runs, but he's accumulated only 6 total hits and 46 at bats. Why does the best baseball player on the planet struggle in that stadium? What do you think?
I would love to know because I guarantee you those are the worst stats out of any ballpark that he's played in.
Right.
Not knowing, I'm
they
just
have to
totally
be.
guessing, but that has to be the worst stats that he's had with a minimum of 10 games played. I would have to guess that's the worst stats he has in any stadium in Major League Baseball.
All right, cool. So we'll see game 2 today in that series. What is your favorite game bet overall on today's slate, Stephen?
I like the Brewers on the run line here today at -1.5 going up against the Detroit Tigers. Really lopsided pitching matchup here, in my opinion, with Freddie Peralta going for the Brewers. You got Casey Mize going for the Tigers here. The Brewers have been the second best team in the entire league on the run line, 39-24 on the year. You'd be up 11.5 units if you've been on that bet all season long, whereas Detroit has been one of the worst teams on the run line, 28-35 on the year. Freddie Peralta just is not getting the flowers he deserves for how he's been pitching so far this season. He hasn't allowed more than 3 runs in 10 of the 12 starts that he's made. And that's what somebody who really just focuses on two pitches. He throws a fastball and a slider. Those are the two main pitches there. The slider gives the Tigers a lot of trouble there. If you look at the projected lineup for today, just a 249 WAR against the slider for the Tigers here today. Tigers also had to cover a lot of innings last night out of the bullpen. Reese Olson finally had that regression we've been waiting for. Got absolutely clobbered by the Brewers last night. 8 runs in just 4 innings of work, so that left 5 innings for the bullpen to cover here. So they really need Casey Mize to stretch in this game. But Casey Mize has some really, really poor numbers against righties. I think that's really going to come to front here today. But give me the Brewers to win this game by at least 2 runs.
How surprised are you that they have a 6.5 game league in the NL Central?
Yeah, that's kind of high.
Seems
for
like the
what
Cubs
I thought.
have regressed a little bit.
Cubs
They're
have
4-6
definitely
in the
regressed,
last
but like
10.
I was really low on the Cardinals, where everybody else was high
Yes.
on the Cardinals. They are, next to nowhere right now. I think we're gonna see a big fire sale from the Cardinals this upcoming trade season here. But not overly surprised, but I did expect more from the Reds, who are, I think they're still below 500.
Yeah, they're. Let me see. I just had their record pulled up. Yeah, they're 31 and 33, but they
Yeah.
are heating up as
Yes.
the summer heats up here, Steve. They're
Yep.
7 and 3 in their last 10 games. So you kind of mentioned earlier about how ideal the Yankees and Dodgers would be in the World Series, and then we texted a little bit yesterday because I said, "Wait a minute, Phillies Mets is in London." I know that Major League Baseball could do a better job marketing its players.
You think?
Especially some outside the top heavy portion of stars, but I had no freaking clue that this game was going down in London today.
This is the amazing thing. The NFL does these international games. You know that there are international games for the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm reading reports for today. Like, I like reading about like the upcoming games.
Yeah, you're a big reader.
People think that this is in Citi Field when they're writing up their write-ups. Nobody has any idea. They probably showed up to London and like, oh, what's up, guys? What are you doing?
Yeah, the only time I know there's some kind of special game that MLB is holding is if it's in a cornfield in Iowa.
That's probably the best game that they've marketed.
Yeah.
Like, because that was good marketing
Yeah.
for the Field of Dreams game.
And it looks
But
like you're targeting Phillies Mets here today. What's the bet? You
I'm
got?
taking the under through the first 5 innings. So when you talk about this park in London, it's like a Coors Field-esque type field.
Yeah, is this the one that the Yankees and Red Sox put up like 30 runs in a game once or something like that?
This is the same place. So that obviously gives you some pause. But I do look at Julian's like,
Julian, calm down.
I know, Julian
all
takes
right?
off this segment. Stay
No
over
one
there.
can see you, dude. Chill.
Phillies and Mets are like under 5.5 through the first 5 innings. So like, yes, this is like a Coors Field-esque type field. But that being said, we got Ranger Suarez going against Sean Manaea here. Like, Ranger Suarez has been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball, period. And it's not like he's just getting lucky. Like, his expected ERA is 2.44. His command has been incredible. He's walking under a 2 batters per 9 innings at this point. And when he faced the Mets earlier this year, 2 unearned runs in that matchup there against the Mets. And you got Sean Manaea, who's already pitched against the Phillies as well. 1 earned run in that start there in the prior start that we had earlier this year. So could we get some runs later in the game? Yes, maybe. But I don't think we're going to be getting 6 through the first 5 innings here as that total jumps up to 10 as I'm speaking here. So give me the under 5.5 through the first 5 innings here. Good pitching matchup. I think we're just taking like the stadium quickly and going, oh, there was 30 runs here before between the Red Sox and Yankees. I'm taking the under in the first 5.
Speaking of the Sox, you like team total here for them today, which we talked about it. We host a Red Sox podcast together since 1901, a Boston baseball podcast. We said on our Thursday episode as they opened up a series against the White Sox, you got to sweep this thing. White Sox are a historically bad baseball team right now, and the Red Sox, you want to keep up in that wild card race, you got to sweep this thing, okay? No excuses. They go out, they do their job in game 1, and then last night they lose to the White Sox.
Yeah, that's a tough pill to swallow.
It's embarrassing no matter which way you spin it.
But there is a very high chance to get back on track here today, going up against Nick Nastrini, who is one of their top prospects for the White Sox here, but has not looked like one of their top prospects at the major league level. So give me the Red Sox to go over 2.5 runs through the first 5 innings here. He's only made 5 starts in his major league career, has gone over 2.5 runs through the first 5 innings in 4 of those starts already. The walks are a major, major issue. He has thrown as many walks as he has innings in the major leagues right now. 20 walks through 20 1/3 innings right now. So that means you're putting a lot of men on base. What happens when you put men on base? Opposing hitters with men on base are hitting .390 against this dude right now through 5 starts. With men in scoring position, .462. .2 they're hitting against him in that situation here. So the Red Sox should get back on track here. Over 2.5 runs through the first 5 innings. That feels like a really strong play. I would say that might be my favorite play of the day overall. I do like the Brewers a lot for a game bet, but when talking about favorite play overall, I think the Red Sox going over 2.5 runs is the play to make here today.
There are moments, Steve, throughout the summer when a team and a season can really start to feel special. And I feel like Friday was one of those nights for the Royals. They trailed 7-0 in the first
inning.
They were down 8-0 in the 4th inning. Yet they rallied to walk off the Seattle Mariners, America's team, in their season opener at Kauffman Stadium. And now you are targeting Kansas City's pitcher this afternoon.
You remember, once upon a time, somebody was on here saying Royals to win the division at 14-1.
Oh, that was Eric Hosmer when we had him on.
That was not Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer hits nothing but ground balls.
All right, easy.
Alec Marsh in that game against Seattle here today, over 5.5 strikeouts against the Seattle Mariners. One of their main points this offseason for the Mariners was to cut down on strikeouts. So they got rid of a couple of guys. They got rid of Eugenio Suarez. They still lead the league in strikeouts. This team strikes out at a ridiculous rate right now. Alec Marsh is not somebody who strikes out many batters at all. He averages less than a strikeout per inning. 7.5 strikeouts per inning is what he averages right now. Yet, when he faced the Mariners first this season, 5 innings, he had 7 strikeouts. Looked like Pedro Martinez out there going up against the Seattle Mariners. Seattle, like I mentioned, 28% strikeout rate on the year. I think this is another spot here for Marsh to go over that strikeout total. I believe it's still at plus money at this point. Yeah, plus 120 for him to go over 5.5 strikeouts. Love that play here for today for Marsh.
And very quickly, you already mentioned how much you like the Brewers today. You also like their catcher today.
Yeah, William Contreras to go over 2.5 hits, runs, RBI. You're getting it at minus 105. Like I mentioned, Casey Mize, 385 WOBA against right-handed bats this year.
All right, the third jewel of the Triple Crown is set for this afternoon. Saratoga Springs. They'll change the scenery, and we're ready to seize the day, baby. Mike Somich will join us next with his favorite bets. right, back here on this glorious show we call The Sweat, where it is time now to talk the third and final Triple Crown event of the year. Yes, the Belmont Stakes. Download DK Horse, by the way. Hammer away at all of those bets your beautiful heart desires. And listen, if you need some guidance doing so, don't listen to me. Listen to the wise words of our VSiN teammate, Mike Somich, one of the best in the business. Nobody knows ponies better than this handsome gentleman. Good Saturday morning to you, my friend. How you been?
Doing great, doing great. I am so excited to get this going too. It's a really a once in a lifetime opportunity here to see the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga Racecourse. It's going to be a phenomenal day of racing from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Wonderful undercard races, and we got a really interesting Belmont Stakes as well this year.
Yeah, so how does the change in venue then change your handicapping? Because this is the test of the champion, but it obviously isn't nearly as big of a test as it typically is because it is going down at Saratoga Springs.
Yeah, not quite as grueling of a race now. So at the Belmont, if you go to Belmont, you'll see that it's one of the biggest tracks, actually the biggest track in the United States. It's a mile and a half around. And so it was the test of the champion because you have to go a mile and a half to win the race. Well, Saratoga, one of the smaller tracks in the country, only a mile and an eighth around. So we're going to run the Belmont at a mile and a quarter this year, the same distance as the Kentucky Derby. And that's one of the big adjustments when handicapping this race is you don't have to worry about that mile and a half distance. You're not projecting how well these horses will be able to do going a mile and a half. Instead, you have past bullet points where you can look and say, nope, this is how good a horse is at a mile and a quarter. I know if they can get the distance. I know if they can get the trip. And so it makes it a little bit easier to handicap this race versus past Belmont years because that quagmire of what they're going to do with the distance is out the window.
So there are lots of familiar names here, Mike, in this field, which isn't always the case. So how do you expect, let's start with Preakness winner, Seize the Gray. How do you expect Seize the Gray to perform here? Because maybe the shorter track gives them a better chance?
It's going to be interesting with Seize the Gray. And we do have a lot of familiar names, and a lot of this is going to come down to what you thought of the Preakness as a race and what you thought of the Derby as a race. And when I go back and I watch the Preakness, look, Seize the Gray got the perfect trip. We were talking quite a bit about Imagination on here and how I thought Imagination would get to the lead from that 9-post, be able to take the field gate to wire. Well, Seize the Gray kind of beat him to the jump and took the field gate to wire. So it was the right trip that produced the winner, just the wrong horse in that spot. I don't think Seize the Gray gets that same trip today. You've got speed on the outside from the 10-horse mind frame. You've got Dornoch, the 6, who's going to want to go. If we see a pace duel set up front, it's going to be a lot harder for Seize the Gray, who, again, at a mile and a quarter, this is a tough distance for him. He was not in the Derby. He ran in the Pat Day Mile on Kentucky Derby Day. And now we also have, the third race in 5 weeks for Seize the Gray as well. So going to be a little more tired than some of the horses that are coming in here after a longer layoff. Yeah. And to me, it's a tough spot to back Seize the Gray because I don't see the Preakness trip happening, and you're going to have a little bit more tired of a horse.
Yeah, so let's talk Handsome Dan. Let's talk Mystic Dan, the Kentucky Derby winner, running another strong race in the Preakness here, Mike. But how much does he have left in the tank as he takes on multiple fresh runners in this spot?
That's the big question with Mystic Dan. I was impressed with what he was able to do in the Preakness off just 2 weeks rest coming from the Derby. But now with just 3 weeks rest, he's got to go back and he's got to run against some horses that are sitting and waiting for him. Sierra Leone, your favorite in this race, the 9-horse, just missed to Mystic Dan by a nose in the Derby. Well, Mystic Dan got a significantly better trip in that Kentucky Derby. He saved all the ground on the inside, where Sierra Leone had to go 5, 6, 7 wide on that second turn and lost a ton of ground. So Sierra Leone traveled significantly more distance in the Derby, yet only lost by a nose. He also switches jockeys from Tyler Gaffleone to Flavian Pratt. That's a pretty big jockey upgrade as well. So it's going to be tough for Mystic Dan to be able to pull this off. But I will say this. He should get a very good trip because he does want to sit just behind the speed. He should get that opportunity. He should get that rail run. That's how he won with Derby. That's the similar trip he should get here. It's just a question, is there going to be enough left in the tank to go these 3 races in 5 weeks and finish it off going a mile and a quarter?
And Mike, I read that this is the first time since 2013 here that the Belmont features a rematch between the winner of the first 2 legs of the Triple Crown. So we're talking the Derby and the Preakness here. So where does this Belmont field rank then among recent ones in recent memory?
This is one of the most competitive Belmont fields I can remember. I'm not sure that the top-end talent, that the superstar horse is here. but there's a lot of really like A-, B+ style horses that have shown up for this. And you've got Seize the Gray, your Preakness winner. You've got Mystic Dan, your Derby winner. You've got both Antiquarian and the Wine Steward, who won and ran second in the Peter Pan, which is the prep in New York for the Belmont Stakes. So they both show up here. You've got Sierra Leone, who ran second in the Derby. And then you've got really the wild card on the outside, a horse named Mindframe, only run twice in his career. Faced significantly worse than this, but beat the pants off him in both starts. This is a big-time step up in class. He's kind of the Fierceness replacement, if you will, owned by Rapoli, who owns Fierceness as well. He decided once Fierceness was out, hey, we're going to put Mindframe in here. We're going to give him a real test early in his career. He could be an absolute superstar, or he could run last in this race. He is the real wild card in this field.
Well, I'm glad you brought up wild cards here, Mike, because since 2000, so 11 horses have lost the Kentucky Derby, skipped the Preakness, and then prevailed in the Belmont here. So it's a highly productive path, it feels like, that has produced a mix of well-regarded winners and long shot winners here. So that said, who is the horse right now atop your list to win this thing?
Well, I did go that direction here. You have two of those horses. You have Dornoch, the 6, and you've got the 9, Sierra Leone, who both skipped the Preakness after running in the Derby and came back here. And I don't want to pick the favorite, but I'm going to pick the favorite in this spot. Look, Sierra Leone looks like the best horse to me on paper and on the racetrack. I thought that second in the Kentucky Derby was a phenomenal one. Didn't exactly draw well in that race, was pushed all the way toward the back, yet still able to make that wide sweeping move and just missed winning the race after lugging in badly, bumping Forever Young in that race, and the fact that Mystic Dan got a much better trip. Now you don't have 20 horses. The trip isn't going to be as big of an issue with just 10 horses here in this race, and Sierra Leone should have enough pace to run into as well. We talked about multiple horses wanting to go. That sets up well for a closer. That's what Sierra Leone is. Let's give it to the 9 horse here, who's the favorite. But if you want a little bit of a long shot to bet, because hey, 9 to 5 is not sexy. We need a little bit of a price here. I think the 2 Resilience is a very, very interesting horse in this spot. 10 to 1 on the morning line. Last time we saw Resilience was the Kentucky Derby. So similar to what you said, run the Derby, skip the Preakness, run here in the Belmont. Well, you go 2 back. Resilience won the Wood Memorial, the last Kentucky Derby prep in New York. And in that race, Resilience drew the 1 post and sat on the inside and was able to just kind of sit behind the speed and make a sweeping move on the turn. Never really got asked. I thought it was a very, very impressive race. Well, in the Derby, Resilience drew the 18 post, was stuck all the way on the outside. I thought ran really well to run 6th. Now we get a significantly better post, a significantly better trip. I think Resilience at 10 to 1 is the most interesting long shot that you can bet here.
What about a trifecta bet here? So for anyone who's new watching right now, picking the first, second, and third place finishers in the correct order. What are you cooking up?
Well, I'm going to go with the 2 horses we mentioned in the previous discussion there on top. So give me the 2 Resilience and give me the 9 Sierra Leone in that first place position.
Okay.
We're going to use 3 horses in second. So we're going to use the 2 and the 9, but let's add one we haven't even talked about yet. The 8 horse, Honor Marie. Another horse, ran the Derby, skipped the Preakness. You want to talk about a bad trip in the Derby? Go back and watch Honor Marie's trip. Got hit so hard out of the starting gate that the jockey Ben Curtis literally fell out of the stirrups. So his feet came out of the metal holdings that help the jockey stay in position and guide the horse. So he was forced to pull the horse all the way back, get his feet back in there, and then had to make a middle move with this horse. He passed 10 horses in the backstretch and then just got kind of tired, got cut off a little bit, and wasn't able to run on. Everything possible went wrong for Honor Marie in the Derby. This horse, according to the trainer, has wanted 1.25 miles his entire career. I don't mind that 12 to 1 price here on Honor Marie. So we're going to put the 2, 8, and 9 in the second place spot, and then we'll add the 10 to round it out. So we'll go 2, 8, 9, 10 in that third place spot of the trifecta. Mindframe, the 10 horse, like I said, just a wild card in this race. I think sets the early pace. I think struggles to finish. So we'll hope that he can hold on for 4th here if we don't get the 2, 8, 9 in the top 3 spots. So the trifecta is going to be 2, 9 with 2, 8, 9 with 2, 8, 9, 10.
Easy enough. Easy enough. And if anybody watching has questions about this, just tweet this guy and he'll help you out, or continue to watch VSiN and DraftKings Network, because the man is everywhere during horse season. Any other bets? We have a minute to go here, Mike. Just any other bets for the day in the earlier races?
Sure, let's talk about a couple of them. The first one, race 7. Let's go with Pretty Mischievous, 6-1 on the morning line. Idiomatic going to be your favorite in this race. She won at the Breeders' Cup. She faces a ton of pace. I think she gets cooked up front, sets up for a closer. That's going to be Pretty Mischievous, 6-1 on the morning line. And then one race before the Belmont Stakes here. Let's go to the 11th race, the number 5 horse, Program Trading. Last time we saw Program Trading run was on the undercard at Churchill Downs for the Kentucky Derby. Looked phenomenal coming back. That was the first race off a layoff. First race as a 4-year-old. This horse has so much upside. I think this is going to be the next superstar for Chad Brown. Let's go with the 5 horse, Program Trading in the 11th race, 5-2 on the morning line.
Mike Somich, you are the best at what you do. We are honored to have you here hanging with us on The Sweat. Thanks so much, dude.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. Well, hopefully we can talk horses again in August.
Absolutely. Let's do it, my friend. People, go download the DK Horse app right now. Place all those Belmont bets ASAP before this thing gets rocking. June is absolutely stacked with the good stuff. We're 5 days out from the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, number 2 teeing off. We're breaking down some early picks you need to hop on right now after this. Ladies and gentlemen, the third major of the year is on the horizon. The U.S. Open, our national championship, returning this upcoming week to Pinehurst #2, which is why we have a pair of gorgeous golf gurus here to help us navigate, to help us make our way through all the odds available on the DK Sportsbook. Jeff Ulrich of DK Network, Kelly Bidlin of VSiN. Good Saturday morning to both of you. I would like to start at the top, please. So if not for being arrested and maybe his caddy missing the third round in the last major, we still could be talking about Scottie Scheffler, a guy going for the calendar Grand Slam. Instead, we are not. So he enters the U.S. Open betting market here at a price of plus 400 on the DK Sportsbook. It's brave. It is brave, Jeff Ulrich, to bet against this man. But what is your move with the world #1 at this number?
I mean, I don't know if you have to be brave to bet against Scottie Scheffler at this U.S. Open. He's plus 400. I mean, we're not talking about some straightforward golf course like Valhalla where, yeah, maybe Scheffler absolutely, if the Louisville police didn't, just have to make a ref show of the weekend, may have been shipped that championship. But I mean, this is the U.S. Open. This is lightning fast greens. These greens at Pinehurst are just absolutely, they're going to be so nasty. And there's just so much variance involved. I mean, you just look at some of the past U.S. Open winners. We got Matthew Fitzpatrick at 50-1, Wyndham Clark at like 80-1, Woodland won at like 50-1 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, there is variance in this major. And I'm not saying the favorite can't win. John Rahm won as the favorite or one of the co-favorites back in 2021. But, we're talking plus 400, not plus 1,000. It's just too short a number for me to take at this tournament. I actually expect this number might balloon a little bit as we get later in the week next week. But no, I'm not really interested in Scheffler here. Not that he can't win, obviously, but definitely going to be looking elsewhere. Those odds are just too short.
Yeah, KB, my only cause for concern here is, well, another run-in with the law, but also on a more serious note, those low odds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll echo what Jeff said. I think those will be, it's not an outright price I'll be considering. I think the other thing that we've kind of seen shift here a little bit recently is it's Xander Schauffele. I mean, there was always questions, about this guy consistently winning and what is his win equity on tour. And now he's got a major win in the bag, and that is a big deal. And he has, it's pretty hard to argue that he hasn't been the second best golfer on the PGA Tour this year. So I think you got those two guys at the top. Rory definitely belongs up there. And then I think there's always the live questions when we get into majors, right? What are Rahm, what are Brooks Koepka going to look like coming in here? At least those two guys I think you got to think about and consider at a U.S. Open. So as a 4-1 on Scottie Scheffler, it's a pretty easy pass for me. I think if you are looking to get involved with him, maybe you could play a first-round leader market, something like that. You get a little bit more bang for your buck. We saw him have a hot start this past week at Memorial.
Yeah, and Jeff, going off of what Kelly just said there, talking about Xander, I mean, heck, his dad has already predicted he will win another major this year, but he is coming off his first major win. It does feel like he's playing the most consistently great golf of anyone not named Scottie Scheffler. This could be a potential floodgates are open situation here, Jeff. How much does Xander have your attention? Who else has your attention towards the top of the odds boards?
Yeah, I mean, look, Xander's best, major prior to the PGA Championship was really, it was the U.S. Open. It was pretty close. I mean, he had some really good PGA Championship results, but you could argue that maybe this is even a better spot. And I think, when you look at U.S. Open setups, Xander not having necessarily high rough to deal with at Pinehurst, he's not quite as long off the tee as some of the other guys. He's certainly quite long. He's an extremely good driver of the ball, but it doesn't have the distance or the strength necessarily of like Bryson or Brooks. So the Pinehurst setup may be advantageous, but I would probably look a little bit further back here. Schauffele's great, and certainly you can think about him for the Open, but I think Victor Hovland, skill-wise, Victor Hovland, still to me, I would still put him above Xander Schauffele. The swing change he made mid-season is just obviously been so crucial to what he was able to do at the PGA Championship. He's had a couple more weeks to get that locked in. I really like this setup at Pinehurst. There's not going to be a ton of tight lies around the greens. Mark Keimer came here in 2014, basically putted his way around the greens to just like a dominant win. Hovland's played well on some of these tricky golf courses as well. He's got a good record at TPC Sawgrass, a couple places like that. We've seen him take on the big names when he's been locked in. So I'm a little bit more interested in Hovland, who's sitting at plus 1,600, but certainly Schauffele, you can't write him off in majors anymore. Absolutely not, just like Kelly mentioned. I think John Rahm at plus 1,400 is the other guy I'm going to take a big look at. We'll see how he finishes in Houston, but Hovland to me is really the guy further back that I want to take a look at, after kind of Scheffler and Schauffele.
Yeah, so you just mentioned John Rahm. Kelly, you've already mentioned Bryson. You mentioned Brooks in there. Kelly, which live guy do you like the most?
Yeah, I think it would be Rahm for me as well. I bet him at the Masters. That didn't, it didn't work out too well. But I think it's for this right now. What we've kind of seen in the betting markets too is these live guys not get as many bets on them. So it would be, my advice would be, don't go to run and bet Rahm or Brooks or any of these guys now. Wait and let those odds drift a little bit. As we get into tournament week and closer to the start of the tournament, that's probably how I'll be approaching it. There's just a price point with all these guys, right? They drift out to a certain price where we've seen these guys who have won before that, okay, it all of a sudden becomes a bet. I'd run 20-1 or something like that last time around, and it was that number was too long for me to pass up. So with the live guys, that's kind of how I'm approaching them. I think the other name I want to throw out there that is kind of near the top of the board, I bet him at the Memorial, and I bet him for the U.S. Open at the same time, was Colin Morikawa. Feels like he's really heating up at the right time right now, and I think he's going to be rolling into the U.S. Open in form, and should the putting's gotten better. A lot of stuff's coming around with his game right now. I'm feeling really confident in him.
Hey, Jeff, when we're talking long shots right now, who is on your card? Who could be? Because you've mentioned the tough U.S. Open setups, which is the case year in, year out, but maybe there are also some guys further down the board who maybe have a good track record on this course.
Yeah, there's just so much variance in the U.S. Open setups that, I just think it lends itself to some more long shot winners than we see at some of the other majors. Like, again, just going through them, like Martin Kaymer back in 2014 won here at 40-1. He was sitting right around 40-1, 35-1. But then you had runners up in Eric Compton and Ricky Fowler that year who were way bigger in odds than that. So, again, I think this U.S. Open setup, particularly at Pinehurst with the greens, the way they're going to play, I think there's a lot of sort of, room for some of these guys to sort of pop up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be longer hitters either. Again, remember Eric Compton, very short hitter. Putting's going to be a big deal. I think Tommy Fleetwood sitting around plus 4,000, great open player, has shot, sub 64 rounds in the U.S. Open before. Could be his time. Russell Henley is another name. Been great around the green, been great on approach all season. He's not going to be as disadvantaged off the tee at this major. So at this U.S. Open, it could be the time for both these guys to potentially play. They're probably better like top 10, top 20 bets, but certainly for long shots, I'll take a look at them. And then if you want a real bomb play, Kurt Kitayama plus 15, plus 150. 150-1, excuse me. Certainly Kitayama, it's a long shot, but you're looking that far back. I think he's probably got the best upside in that group.
Jeff, your boy Tommy Fleetwood let me down in the final round of your national championship at the Canadian Open a couple weekends ago, buddy.
Yeah, well, that's what he does. That's why I said, top 20, top 10, okay?
Yeah, exactly. KB.
And the year before.
Yeah, and every other tournament on American soil. Yeah. KB, which long shots have your attention?
Yeah, I don't know how many of these I'll be splashing outright bets on, but Corey Connors, another Canadian, Corey Connors, I think his game rounding into shape a little bit. You're going to find a long bomb number on him, and then a guy that I just can't quit because the stats are so good. Hideki Matsuyama, I don't know that I for sure will be betting him yet. He does have the back injury that he had to deal with a couple weeks ago. Monitoring that right now. He might be a guy I'll bet closer to the tournament. But man, the game, just when you're looking at everything stat-wise, the game is just so it's so well-rounded right now. It's hard to completely ignore him. So those would be two that I'd possibly consider outright bets on. I think for more placement market bets, like Jeff was talking about, Aaron Rye, Keith Mitchell, these are guys that I'll be looking at. Great long iron hitters. Keith Mitchell off the tee, been great this year. But for top 20 bets, top maybe a top 40 for Aaron Rye, top 20 for Keith Mitchell would be two I'd be attracted to. Keith Mitchell's a guy I've been betting pretty heavily this year. And then one just for you, Emerson. The great Keegan Bradley is really coming into form off the tee. The ball striking's looking great. Could he sneak into a top 20 or something like that? I think he possibly could. So he's one I've got circled right now.
All right, guys, really quick, got about 45 seconds left in the show. Just give me somebody real quick who you like to win this thing. Jeff.
Yeah, my first name has to be Victor Hovland.
Okay.
I mean, I'm going to have some exposure to him. He's plus 1,600, but I just like the setup and the potential for Hovland coming off that PGA Championship.
All right, Kelly.
Colin Morikawa. I think he's
There
on
he
a
is.
heater right now. He keeps it going.
All right, gentlemen. You both are fantastic. We'll talk much more golf with both of you. Talking U.S. Open on this show next weekend. We've sweat so much this morning here, folks. We're hitting the cool down. We're going to wrap up the program after this, our final break here on the Saturday morning edition of The Sweat.
Good morning, Sweat fans. Gojo here to remind you to tune in to Gojo and Golic, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. right here on the DraftKings Network. Now, back to the Sweat.
Thank you, Gojo, for that reminder. Really appreciate it. Let's remind everybody, as we have now approached the final block of the Sweat, what we have talked about, what we have covered in this show. Belmont picks, Mike Somich, liking Sierra Leone. He's not the only one. Celtics up 1-0. We had Mr. Julian Edlow helping you, dishing out some bets ahead of Game 2 tomorrow night in Boston. And the Panthers drinking from the cup, question mark, both Anna and Pete, thinking that ahead of Game 1 tonight against the Oilers. What?
Steve also talked about baseball.
I know, like, what's that about?
But that's the least important part of the show, so we leave it out.
I didn't make that. I would have put you at the top because it was actually a really good baseball segment.
Yeah, I know it was, and like nobody cares, I guess.
Talk to producer Drew, dude. Talk to producer Drew. Okay. Now, yes, we did talk baseball and U.S. Open golf. We just chatted about so much in this show, which is why we do it for 2 hours every Saturday and Sunday morning here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Now, a lot of what people have been talking about throughout this past week is who's going to be the head coach of the Lakers, the next head coach of the Lakers. And on Wednesday, Jules, Sham saying J.J. Redick looked like he was going to be the guy. And guess what? J.J. Redick, who is calling the finals right now on ABC and ESPN, he joined Gojo and Golic for the latest. Listen to this.
What do you know?
My day-to-day right now is consumed with calling games, the 19 different podcasts I feel like I have, my obligations to all of our partners. So my focus is on the NBA Finals. I will say that. In terms of Shams, that will be addressed once the season is over. So I'll just say that.
Interesting, because like
he's speaking like a coach already.
Yeah, it's true. It's coach speak. It's saying a lot without saying anything at all. But it was interesting because then the next day, Woj just forming the Lakers head coach reporting war. So
he watches DraftKings Network. He wanted to get the narrative straight.
That's right. So Woj then reports, all of a sudden, out of the blue, Julian Edlow, Dan Hurley, after leading UConn to back-to-back NCAA national championships, has emerged as the Lakers' priority target in their coaching search. What did you think about that?
Yeah, pretty shocking. Didn't see that coming. Seems like J.J. Redick was obviously the guy. We've been talking about it pretty much week after week on this show when Redick was plus 260 range for the job, closed laying close to $2 or something, I think. And Hurley wasn't even a thought. Seems like a college coach to me. Like, my personal opinion on it is that Hurley's the perfect college coach. I can't see Hurley like running a hard Lakers practice and like getting in LeBron's ear about trying, like, playing harder on locking up on defense or something. I can't see that. That said, if you're going to offer him, $100 million over 8 years to coach the Lakers, you got to be an idiot not to take that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying if he got offered the job, he wouldn't take it. I'm surprised the Lakers want to bring in a prestigious college coach like this.
Are you surprised the Lakers, it appears their top two candidates are guys that have no NBA coaching experience?
No, I mean, Hurley's, especially in that family, like that's a coaching tree family. So I don't, I kind of trust that. I just think it's more, they're known in the Northeast, coaching high school, coaching college, what he built at UConn. That's just kind of the feel of the Hurleys, not the coach of the LA Lakers. But again, if that's his goal, Hurley's goal to get in the NBA, you get a big fat deal from the Lakers, that's pretty good. But like LeBron and JJ are having all these conversations on those podcasts, like almost like setting him up to be the coach. JJ sounds like he pretty much teased that he's going to be the coach, and then this all comes out the next day. I just thought it was a really weird story.
And on tomorrow's show, I will talk with Amin El-Hassan. I will talk with Charlotte Wilder, the dynamic duo hosts of Oddball on DraftKings Network, Tuesday through Friday here on the network. We're going to get their input on that search as well. Just one more question for you. What would a Hurley hire mean for LeBron James? Well, besides the fact that it's his fourth coaching staff.
Well, I was going to say, what comes first, the coaching hire or LeBron exercising his contract?
the coaching hire, I think. But if it's Hurley, that would get the wheels moving in my head that maybe LeBron is off to somewhere else, because Hurley's more of like a program builder rather than it just seems weird to bring in a college coach to finish LeBron's career. You would think more of a big name, get over the hump, one last championship type of hire rather than a Hurley. But again, if he gets offered it, he should take it. I just don't see from the Lakers' point of view going this route necessarily, and it's nothing against Dan Hurley. He's a good coach. It's just his style, his technique is perfect for what he's doing in college.
Speaking of one last championship, one final leg of the Triple Crown today, the Belmont. Okay, we all know it's a different track. It's in Saratoga Springs. It's not at Belmont, which is undergoing renovation. So if you listen to Mike so much earlier on this, what's that?
Could have planned that better.
Yeah, I don't know. I think originally, from what I read this past week, they were planning on it to be done, but then there were some delays.
It's like when we always plan all this road
and I
work.
think they just wanted to play it safe, Steve. Instead of getting up close to the Belmont and it still being under construction, I said, let's just take it to Saratoga Springs.
It's like when Boston does all their tunnel work in the heart of summer.
Oh my God, we're closing the stinking tunnel for a whole month. Okay, I'm not going to do that. And not to mention, we're taking away car lanes for bike lanes.
Right.
Anywho, big cyclist people here. Okay, so you saw Mike so much build his trifecta earlier, right? So let's have a little bit of fun. With these Triple Crown races on this show, we've been doing the cartoon horses against these guys' bets, right? It turns out their bets don't really stack up all that well against the AI horses. The AI horses have consistently been winning. So we said, well, let's build our own trifecta, but we're going to do a box trifecta, so we don't have to pick the exact order of first, second, third for Belmont today. We just need to pick the right horses in that top three.
Yes.
All right?
So Jules over there, so back away from
I
me.
want you to go first. The first time I am actually allowed to touch the touch screen. This is history here on the Sweat.
This is true.
Jules, who do you want today?
Touching me.
That's right.
I said off the top of the show, I'm going with the favorite. I'm going with Sierra Leone.
We're going down here. Wow, so you were listening to Mike so much, you were listening.
Well, no, I said it before, Mike, obviously.
Okay.
Anywho, later in the show.
So I'm not going to, all right, you're picking him to win.
I'll even add a little bit of analysis. This is the best horse in the field. Almost beat Mystic Dan in the Kentucky Derby.
Beat by like a
that
nose.
Photo finish.
Yeah.
Didn't race in the next race, and now should be, coming back to break through. This is the best horse in a small field.
There are a lot of horses here, Steven.
Yeah.
With fresh legs. All right? Are you looking at one of those fresh legs?
Well, I will say, too, just off of Julian, our own Johnny Avello said he wasn't a big fan of Mystic Dan on this track.
Interesting.
Right. So
do you remember why?
That you can go on DraftKings Network website. He's got his all
That's
little
exactly what I'm
analysis
going to do
there.
after this show.
Johnny Avello did a little write-up there for this here.
What are you thinking?
I'm going to add Antiquarian to this one at 12 to 1.
Oh, big Aquarian
A lot
guy.
of love for this one for the odds being at 12 to 1, but obviously in this, we don't need him to win necessarily. So I like it.
I don't know what I'm going to do
You should go with the horse.
Awesome.
What? All right.
You should go with Resilience because you put up with a lot in this show.
You know what? I really do, but I think what I am going to do is I'm going to use my brain. I am going to use my mind, and I'm going to go with Mind Frame. All right? No reason other than the fact that I've listened to professionals who know a lot more about horse racing than I do mention that name quite a bit. So, gentlemen, the box trifecta. We need
box.
Yeah, the trifecta box. We need these three horses to finish in the top three of this race. My confidence level.
5, 9, 10 box it is.
There you go.
Okay, that's a great way to put it.
Now, here's the biggest thing. Is producer Drew, who's a big horses guy, is he going to actually place this?
He's
Yeah,
placing it
producer
right
Drew,
now.
I
you
feel
need
like
to build a betting card on DK Horse
I think
with
he
those
should for
three
the
horses.
name of the show. And then we'll cost producer Drew some money.
Well, Sierra Leone's going to win. I know I got that part right.
Okay, cool. Well, Mind Frame and Antiquarian, dude, they're just going to get out there and they're going to rip it. All right?
Can I say the Wine Steward is just a horrible name?
Yeah.
You can give your horse any name
we could
you
do a
want.
whole segment on how a lot of these owners and other horse managers come up with their horse names.
Right, because then we got the biggest underdog here at 20 to 1 and its name is Protective.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like
That's
really
the best we
protecting
can call.
himself
I mean, that's
all
like
that
naming
well.
your horse Howard. Like, why would you name your horse Howard?
I will say
that's a dog's name.
I will say
like Bailey.
if you listen to Mike so much earlier in this show, this does tend to be a race where maybe some long shots can finish near the top.
That can
Okay.
happen.
Just because there's
day
a lot
for- it's a
of there's
day
a
for
lot
the
of
favorite.
horses. Okay, a lot of horses who do take that
There's half
second
as many
and
horses
runoff.
as the Kentucky Derby.
That is true.
Exactly. All right, everybody.
You're arguing the opposite.
Yeah,
You're not going to be
no.
handicapping horses on this show anytime soon.
I'm a big horse guy, everybody. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern Time on DraftKings Network and VSiN.
Will you be here?
Yeah.